Sounds
All
good.
right. Welcome to the Wednesday, October 16th, 2024 electronic meeting of the Ann Arbor Transportation Commission. This meeting is being held electronically, but we intend to conduct it similarly to
Recording in progress.
public comment will be via telephone or Zoom only. To speak during any of the public comment opportunities, please call 206-337-9723 and enter meeting ID number 934-6385-2907 or join via the Zoom link. This information is also available on the published agenda, in the public notices section of the city website, and on the broadcast of this meeting on CTN Channel 16. Chris, if you could call roll.
Not a problem. I have received regrets from Commissioner Lee and Hutchinson, who unfortunately won't be able to attend this evening. Please say here and from where you're dialing when your name is called. Commissioner Briggs. Okay. Commissioner Brogan.
Here from Ann Arbor.
Commissioner Campbell.
Here from Ann Arbor.
Commissioner Altamaki.
Here from Ann Arbor.
Commissioner Hook.
Here from Ann Arbor.
Commissioner Keeler.
Here from Ann Arbor.
Commissioner Lee is absent. Commissioner Carpenter.
Actually, I am here from Busan, South Korea.
Oh, okay. Thank you for joining us.
Yep. Hello.
Commissioner Carpenter. Unfortunately, your audio does not seem to. Okay, I see. Not a problem. Commissioner Ramaswamy. Okay. Commissioner Liu.
Here from Northville Township.
Commissioner Margolis. Lieutenant Mike Sherba.
Here from Tyrone Township.
Commissioner Stupka. And Commissioner Hutchinson is absent. Okay, perfect. With that, we do have quorum.
Thank you. There are two items on the consent agenda tonight, approval of the agenda and approval of the minutes from September's meeting. Are there any other modifications to the consent agenda? So raise your hand or speak up. All right, seeing none, is there a motion to approve the consent agenda as presented? Maybe if we could show all the people on the screen so I can see hands. Thank you. Is there a motion to approve the consent agenda as presented? Moved by Megan, seconded by Lisa. Thank you. All those in favor, please say yes or raise your hands.
Yes.
All those opposed, please say no and raise your hand. The consent agenda is approved. Public comment. This is an opportunity for persons to speak for up to 3 minutes. Again, please call 206-337-9723 and enter meeting ID number 934-6385-2907 or connect via Zoom as described on the agenda. City staff will select callers that have raised their hand one by one using the last 3 digits of your phone number or the person's Zoom ID. In order to electronically raise your hand to indicate your desire to speak, please press *9 on your phone or select the raise hand button in Zoom. You'll hear an automated announcement that the host is allowing you to speak. When speaking, please move to a quiet area and mute any television or background sounds so we can hear you clearly. Chris, do we have any members of the public who wish to speak tonight?
It doesn't appear so.
Give it a second. All right, seeing none, let's move on. Business there for the month of October, there are not any business items scheduled, so let's move on to the information and discussion section. First up is the State Street resurfacing project. That's from Southview to William. This project is currently in engineering design phase. Work includes underground utility work and street resurfacing. Construction on State Street is expected to be 2025, and this presentation will focus on alternative lane use on State Street. Construction on Northview and Thayer is expected to be in 2026. Staff will provide an update on Northview and Thayer at future meetings after their design begins. So, Chris, do you want to introduce our presenters?
This Chris or the other
Yes.
Chris?
Okay. That.
Any of either, whoever.
Chris Wall and Dean from the Trim will be the presenter for this.
Yeah, I'm actually going to defer to my colleague, Mark McCullough, with Wade Trim as well. As probably many know, we have a contract with the City of Ann Arbor to act as in-house project managers and also support with a full engineering team. So we've been working on the State Street project for quite some time, and so we want to provide this update. So I'll pass it off to Mark if you want to share the screen and walk through the presentation.
Yeah, thanks, Chris.
And while you're
How's
doing
everyone?
that, for all the commissioners, if you have questions along the way, just raise your hand via Zoom or physically, and we'll just try to answer questions as we go, if that's okay with you guys.
How are we all doing this evening?
Very good, thank you.
All right, cool. Well, as Chris said, my name is Mark McCullough. I'm happy to be here on behalf of the City of Ann Arbor, representing Wade Trim. We'll be walking through some slides here on State Street improvement. This improvement, you may have heard of it, was originally part of the North University and Thayer project, but it has been separated so that we can focus on State Street to get it done in 2025. The limits of construction are going to be from South University to East William Street. So the citywide goals were something that was very important to not just the city, but also for Wade Trim, that we wanted to focus in on Vision Zero and the carbon neutrality policy set forth by City Council, which Vision Zero being by 2025 and beyond, no one dies or is seriously injured in crashes on Ann Arbor streets, whereas with the carbon neutrality by 2030 and beyond, the transportation system contributes zero emission towards climate change. And how, as you guys know, I'm preaching to the choir here, how that plays hand in hand is really when you do design consideration for all ages and abilities, you're also reducing emissions because you're including other forms of transportation to get from point A to point B. So in this case, these are all pictures I took on State Street. So you have bikers, you have people in wheelchairs that are boarding transit, and you have the walkers on both sides of the roadway. Not just that, but they also need to cross the road from west to east and vice versa via crosswalks. So this project wanted to focus in on how can we make this scope better? Well, how can we make the corridor better with a scope that uses design considerations for all ages and abilities? And the first document that we've looked at was the Comprehensive Transportation Plan as adopted by the City of Ann Arbor. And as you likely know, that State Street from South University to East William is a Tier 1 corridor, which essentially means that it is a priority for the city to address via Vision Zero principles to reduce crashes, enhance safety, so that all users can have a better experience along the roadway. And likewise, because the South University intersection is included in the scope of work, it's also identified as a Tier 1 project. So we've looked at that intersection on how we can enhance that intersection through geometric changes, which I'll get to in a moment, to address those policy goals. So, target strategies. One, we want to build a safe, comfortable bike route along the corridor. We want to make intersections, in this particular case, South University, safer and easier for the users. We definitely need to be in compliance with the Americans with Disabilities Act. We want to partner with mobility service partners, so in this case, University of Michigan, AATA, and other agencies. And we want to improve transit reliability and speed along the corridor, whether that be through bus stops or other amenities. This is an aerial view of the project. North is looking up. So South University, the red line is State Street. South University is the point of beginning, with just shy of East William Street is the point of ending. So the total project length is 0.2 mile. Per Ann Arbor street classification is a major road. And as you likely know, both sides of the street is bounded by the University of Michigan Central Campus. And this is a heavily used transit corridor, both by AATA and the University of Michigan. So the project scope was to do the following. We wanted to replace an aging water main underneath the roadway. We're going to do some stormwater management, so enhance the quality of the water that's being outlet into streams and rivers. Resurface the pavement. Provide protected bike lanes with delineators. Do intersection improvements at South University. Provide elevated crosswalks at the 2 locations that I'll show you in a moment. And make transit improvements. All right, so there's a lot to unpack with this slide. So I'm going to take it in bite sizes. We'll work from the left side over to the right. I do want to note one thing with my cursor here. I did add this little image this afternoon as I was thinking about it. It was going to be difficult to explain the concept of the Q jump lane without some type of visualization. So I did add that, and I'm happy to pass that along to you guys for your records if you'd like it. All right, so north is pointing to the right. This is South University right here. And basically the color coordination you'll see over in the right side, lower right side here, of what the colors represent. So let's start at the South University intersection down here in the lower left corner of the slide. You'll see here
oh, sorry. I just wanted to say, I don't think we're seeing your cursor, and maybe it's only me, but yeah, if there's a way to.
Yeah. That's a good point. Wait, there it is. You see it now?
Thank you.
Yeah, it was on my laptop. Thank you, sir, for bringing that to my attention. So right here is the existing curb lane that exists at South University, at the intersection of South University and State. And as many of you are familiar with it, it is, I wouldn't say it's a terribly long crosswing, but it also has been identified as a tier 1 intersection. So we wanted to do what we can to both tighten up the radii so that it could still work with the transit movements, but also provide a shorter crossing so that the pedestrian is exposed to traffic, reduces the amount of time they're exposed to traffic. So by tightening that radius, from memory, it's about 20 feet, and I didn't write that down. I should have, but I apologize. I can always look that up. We're going to greatly enhance the safety for the walkers, both going east and west on the north side of the intersection, and on the east side of the intersection going north and south. So as we move along the corridor, I do have 3 cross sections that's going to help supplement what I'm talking about. So bear with me, it'll help. I can go back and forth as needed, should that be helpful. So right here is the Michigan Union building. And as we're going to the north, there is going to be 2 lanes in each direction. Southbound lane, northbound lane, and then in the red block is a transit-only lane. Now, this design looks a little bit, well, looks interesting. Let's put it that way. And internally, we've called it Concept 2C. This is what we've landed on. So there's been some iterations and some context that's needed so that you understand how we landed on this design. When the city of Ann Arbor first proposed this project, it was going to be a mill and fill cross section where they'll replace the water main and the sanitary. Now there's no sanitary on this road, but improve the stormwater and increase and then replace the water main. And as part of that, they were going to put in a protected bike lane with the delineators and a buffer on both sides. It was going to use the existing footprint that's there today. The one caveat to it was that the parking on both sides of the roadway was going to be gone away. It's my understanding that this has been brought to the attention of the DDA, and based on where we've landed, that they are supportive of that. That's my understanding. Along the way,
and Amber is here to speak to that, but to be fair, we also owe the DDA an update on this as well. So we are planning to provide an update to them on the impacts of the parking.
Thank you, Chris. So in the interim, there was discussion about, hey, in the interest of alternative forms of transportation, And because of the amount of buses that are used this both northbound and southbound, would it make sense for this to be a corridor between South University and East William to be buses only with protected bike lanes on both sides? That was investigated. It was kicked around. It was discussed. It was talked about amongst the stakeholders. And ultimately, the decision was made that now is not the right time to implement that. That was more or less the consensus of the stakeholders, is my understanding. But they also knew that there's a lot of traffic going northbound on State Street, so with the buses. So how could transit still be implemented where it is an improvement to the project? So without having to widen the pavement, essentially the 3-lane cross section that you see is how this came to birth. So we have the southbound lane, which would be shared both by AAATA and cars, northbound lane, that's just for non-transit, and then the exclusive transit lane. There's going to be 2 bus stops proposed, one in front of the Union, which is at this time only used by AAATA, and one at the Art Center. And these are called side boarding island bus stops. So what makes these unique and what makes it a good feature that enhances the safety here is it doesn't create a conflict point between the bus when it is dropping off and picking up passengers and the cyclist that is continuing to travel down the roadway. And that's because it's separated. So over here, as you can see, with this sideboarding island that's in blue, the bike lane will traverse behind through barrier curb the bus stop. Now, when there is a crossing here and here, we will work with design features so that the biker is mandatory. It's mandatory that they yield to the pedestrian. So the pedestrian will have the right of way. Getting a little bit ahead of myself here, but just wanted to throw that in there. I mentioned that there's going to be 2 crosswalks as part of this project. These are going to be elevated crosswalks where they're essentially going to be 6 inches above the pavement so that it enhances the safety for the person walking across the street so they're seen by the motorist, and for the motorist vice versa to see them so they don't hit them, which is an important feature for a tier 1 project such as this. So that will be ramped up in concrete so that the crosswalk is elevated. The 2 locations being proposed are between Union and LSA building, and then the Art Center and Angel Hall over on this center, on the east side. Likewise, there's a little alleyway between the Kensley building and LSA and in front of Angel Hall. So those are the 2 locations that are proposed for elevated crosswalks. Now to dive a little bit deeper into the cross section itself. In this particular spot, what you're seeing right here in this area is a cross section that's reflected exactly right here. So the sidewalk width will vary depending upon which side of the road you're on and also where you are in relationship to South University and or East William Street. So we'll walk through this, that there's going to be the existing sidewalk on the west side of the roadway, curb and gutter, that's going to be 2 foot with a buffer. So that's considered a buffer between the pedestrian and the cyclist. And then there'll be the 6 foot wide bike lane. And with that, there'll also be a 2 foot buffer with pavement and delineator separating the bicyclist from the travel lane, similar to what you would see on State Street south of South University. The southbound lane will be shared by a bus and by cars, whereas the northbound lane will be just non-transit only. Whereas, and then the last lane in red is what we're calling it the Q jump lane. And this is to enhance timing for the buses so that it's more efficient for them to stay on schedule and meet the needs of the people that are riding the bus so they can get to their destinations on time. As we transition further down the road here, and meaning north towards East William Street, there's a traffic signal that's there currently. This was done as part of the curbless street. I think it was 2 years ago, maybe 3 years ago now. This intersection was incorporated in that design. That signal that's there now is going to be modified slightly, whereas it's going to provide a what we'll call a Q jump signal. And that Q jump signal, forgive me, I'm going to have to push my thing down because I can't see my other screen here, is whereby it's going to have a square lens that's going to stand next to the traffic signal. And you'll see here with the arrangements that the stop bar arrangement gives positioning to the bus so that they can get, per the name, a jump on traffic that is going northbound that's stopped in the at the stop bar that's set further back. So how this works is that this signal here is only going to be really what's known to the bus driver. So when it's horizon to horizon like this, the bus has to stop, and it's in coordination with the red light. Before the traditional light turns green, this transit signal is then going to go vertical. So south and north, that's going to be the indication that the driver has so many seconds to jump ahead of any amount of cars that are sitting back here that currently exist today so that they are not held back. And then eventually, after a certain timing, it'll turn green, and then the system will get back in place. This system is used in many corridors along metropolitan regions, San Francisco, Seattle, as close as Madison, Wisconsin. So it's not new. It has been utilized in other parts of the country and has worked really well. Make sure I look at my notes here. So cross sections. So here's the three cross sections that we're talking about. Student union. What we have here, get my cursor back.
Quick question.
Yes, sir.
The intersection of South U before this cross section, could go back one slide.
Yeah.
So at the far left, I see the bike lane coming north on the east side of State Street. How does it get up onto the curb right there. Yeah.
Right
what
there?
happens there? Yeah.
Yep.
Okay.
So yeah, that's a fair question. So good question. Get my cursor here. So this will be nothing. It would be just like you see at any really traditional intersection where the surface grade is the same as the street. And then at some point, what's going to happen is that it's going to then elevate. So it's going to go from the street level and rise up to the back of curb as it's traversing at some point. I don't know exactly what. That's a detail we haven't worked out yet. But it's going to have an elevation change so that it can, at this ramp here, be at the same elevation as the crosswalk. And likewise, it's going to have to be at the same elevation of this crosswalk here, this one here at the bus stop, this one here. And at some point, we'll go back down to grade so that it can then connect on this would be the north side of the roadway.
Okay. Yeah,
Did that answer your question?
The curve of the curb there. And so in the little blow up pictured in the far lower left, so I just wasn't sure how the bikes were getting on. Okay.
Yeah. I guess there's a lot to unpack here. There's a lot of intricate details in this slide, so forgive me if I missed something.
Lisa?
Yeah. Is it okay to ask questions, or would you prefer that we hold those till
I prefer
later?
I only got 4 slides left, so how about I get through that? And then we can entertain any questions that you have and answer them to the best we can.
Great. I'll hold my questions till then.
Thank you, Lisa. Okay, so here's the cross section for in front of the student union. We have the sidewalk along the east side, the curb, that's the protected barrier between the buffer between the sidewalk and the bike lane.
Mark, on the west side.
Thank you. West side of the roadway. And then we have the curb lane, the curb, which acts as a buffer on the west side, the 6-foot bike lane. And keep in mind, these dimensions vary depending upon where you are along the corridor. Another buffer that's going to be physically separating the bike lane from the sideboarding island bus stop. The southbound lane that will be shared by buses and cars. The northbound lane, which is just for vehicles, and then the transit lane with the 2-foot buffer and delineators, 6-foot bike lane, curb, and then sidewalk on the east side. Transitioning to Angel Hall and the Museum of Art, going from west to east, again, sidewalk. We'll have the curb and gutter, 6-foot bike lane, 2-foot buffer zone with the delineators, the southbound lane, northbound lane, and then the transit lane with also the side boarding island bus stop near the Art Center Angel Hall. Another border between the bike lane and the bus stop, 6-foot bike lane, another feature to separate with delineators, the bike lane from the sidewalk along the east side. And finally, the cross section at Trotter Center and then the Diag/University campus here. Working on the west side of the roadway, we'll have the sidewalk, curb and gutter, bike lane, delineation with the buffer, northbound traffic, southbound traffic, reversed it, southbound traffic, northbound traffic, and then the northbound transit lane. What's different here is that you'll see a 10-foot, give or take, green space, and that is there to protect the trees that exist along that frontage by Angel Hall and the campus area. The university said, hey, these trees are really important to us. What can you do to protect them? So we changed the design up in this corridor, this part of the corridor, in order to be able to keep those amenities. And likewise, bikeway, protected bikeway, buffer zone, and east side sidewalk. So our next step is our last slide here. We're going to finalize conceptual details. We'll finalize the road, the water main, and stormwater bid documents. We're looking to go to bid around Christmas. Continue stakeholder and public engagement. We can talk about that. And then spring 2025 construction date is where we're looking for. So with that, Chris and I are here to answer your questions.
Go for it, Lisa.
All right, couple questions. So, there's currently a bus stop at State and William. In this reconfiguration, is that bus stop going to be eliminated?
Yes, it is my understanding that there was discussions with the university that they wanted to consolidate the 2 bus lanes so that only one existed in front of Angel Hall, Art Center Angel Hall.
Okay, and then, my next, overall, I love what I think this reconfiguration is prioritizing. One thought in the back of my head is, what's the thinking around how passenger drop-off, pickup, waiting is going to be handled in this new configuration? Just because I'm thinking that the Art Museum, the Michigan Union, these are all heavily trafficked areas that are, destinations, I think, for student recruitment, people from out of town. And I love the idea of more kind of better traffic flow on State, but has the university or others expressed thoughts about how those kinds of use cases are going to be handled, even like, ride share, drop off, pickup for places in that area?
Chris, do you have any insight into that question?
Well, in terms of use of like transit, let's say in terms of the sizing of the bus stops and the queuing areas in regards to bike flows, that definitely was considered in the sizing of the stops. In terms of the allowance for other users or other people to like drop off there, the system can tolerate some of curb drop off, quick drop off, and then allow traffic to someone to move on. But there's going to have to be some enforcement too, just like a lot of other city roads that don't have parking lanes that to kind of keep the traffic moving here. But we have been working with the university, meeting with them frequently about this, and they have been talking with their tenants and their building facilities to make sure that they're on board with this and understand that State Street might not be the best place to actually like drop off or send users to like park here or drop off, pick up people here. We've also been looking at other areas where we might be able to add some additional capacity for parking, and that's still kind of under review to see where we can maybe find little places on some of the back roads to add some additional spots.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, Luke.
Yeah, I'm just curious on some details if they're available. The color in the slides for bus lane, they're red. So is this really anticipated to be like fully um, colored the entire stretch in red paint? Um, and the secondary question is as to the bus only traffic signal. If I would imagine it wouldn't make sense to service the bus movement in every cycle. It makes sense when the bus is there. So if there's any bus detection system that's included in this project. So,
Yeah, the great questions, Luke. The both are details that we're still investigating. We've definitely shown the red paint or the red marking on the transit only lane, the queue jump lane, just because it does pop and it kind of demonstrates that it is kind of for transit only. In discussions with the ride and with the U of M Transit, they definitely have been on board with this type of application, but we really haven't dove into the details of if it's really going to be paint the whole way, if it's going to be some other treatment. There's also details about, because this really is a facility intended for transit, for the ride and for U of M, that there would be some involvement with a cost share, a maintenance agreement, where they would help participate in taking care of that, or at least providing funds to take care of that. So that's also in discussions too.
thank you.
Like, do we talk about the traffic light, the bus sensing traffic light?
So that is another item that is still under discussion in terms of exactly how that's going to function and operate. But I think Luke brings up a good idea. We don't want to really operate that and use it if a bus isn't there. If we can give that green time to a vehicle instead, that's just going to make things operate a little bit more efficiently. So that's something we can definitely review.
Thank you, Peter.
I've got a couple of questions about that signal. Have they been used elsewhere in Michigan? I've never seen one. Is it something that is acceptable according to the laws that we have for traffic control devices in Michigan?
I'm not aware of any in Michigan currently being used, but I don't think that's because of the MMUTCD, because it is recognized in, I believe, in the national manual. So it's a good question, and I'm going to write it down and look into it.
But it is used in other states, so it's not something that's like new and it's never been used before.
Okay. Some of the other points I had, I think we need some design features to prevent people from abusing the skip lane, from preventing, individual drivers from abusing the skip lane. That, to me, that looks like a potential opportunity for a high-speed crash in a crosswalk, right? And when drivers get frustrated by long lines on State, which happen there just because of all the traffic and all, just because of the situation we have in that area, I can see people getting frustrated and opting to use that skip lane inappropriately. And so if they're going faster than all the other cars that are waiting on State Street, then that could create a serious conflict at a crosswalk.
Yeah, Karen.
Go ahead.
I'm sorry. Yeah, that's there. We've had some discussions about, especially as you approach the intersection to William, there definitely is a need that we want to separate non-transit vehicles with transit vehicles, right? You don't want to really mix them in that queue jump lane.
Mm-hmm.
And so we've been talking about possibly putting like something along that the lane line that separates those lanes. Maybe we evaluate extending that treatment even further south. If the concern that you've raised is a valid concern that we need to investigate and try to resolve for.
My other concern, and thanks. I mean, that's the kind of thing I had in mind. I think that's worth investigating. My other concern is that this is an area where we already have a lot of conflicts between pedestrians and cyclists. There's a lot of them mixing there in the diag, and the setup here with the way the buses are loaded and the bike lane, this looks like an opportunity for pedestrians to sort of inadvertently end up in the bike lane, and for people waiting for buses to end up in that bike lane. And that I'm worried about conflicts between bus riders, pedestrians, and cyclists in this area for that reason. I don't know if there's a way to help prevent that, or if we would need to switch the order of the bike lanes in order to do that, to have them closer to the travel lanes. But
Mark, if you don't mind, Mark, could you reshare maybe one of the cross sections with the bus stops?
Already there. I was anticipating that.
So a lot of the details still have to be worked out. We literally just received confirmation last week from U of M that they were going to participate in the funding for these enhanced bus stops and the transit queue jump lane last week. So a lot of details still have to be worked out. But there's these buffer zones on either side of the bike lane. This one's on the southbound bike lane. Now the other side.
You're right. Yeah, exactly. I showed that one first. Correct.
The blue one by the bus stop.
My apologies, Chris. Sorry. Yeah, these.
That's the place where we have the conflict with the bus or the bikers and the pedestrians. So there's different treatments in those buffer zones that we're going to explore. There's some details of putting like railings between the sidewalk zone and the bike lane. There's others of putting like a little raised curb with delineators on it. There's different ways to kind of separate and channelize pedestrians into the crossing zones, so it's a very much more controlled and someone doesn't just wander into a bike lane. So those are still details that we're exploring, because we want to make sure everybody's kind of on the same page with what we're proposing. So right now, what we're showing is kind of a minimal approach, but those are details still under discussion.
Okay. I actually do have one last observation, if you don't mind. At the corner of South U and State, there's just a lot going on there. And we've got on the southbound side, we've got the bus stop sort of in that area. So we've got the tight radius curve there that's going to be pushing buses and traffic sort of further into the southbound lane as they go from South U to State. And we've got the bus stop there. It just looks like there's going to be a lot happening right there, and I'm worried about large vehicles having trouble navigating that turn, sort of coming head to head with a bus that's headed southbound, right all in that crosswalk that is full of people coming from South Quad and West Quad and going to the diag. So I'm just wondering if there's a way to ease some of the congestion there, and maybe one possibility would be to move the bus stop north to just take some of the pressure off of that intersection. Maybe there's a different solution, but that's my concern.
Well, you've there's a couple items that we're maybe still discussing with U of M and the ride on that bus stop location. That's still kind of, we need to finalize this. On our past discussions, that location next to the Union was kind of where the desired location was. There was thoughts of actually moving it maybe to the north, so we can talk to them about if they have that desire to move it to the north. The bus stop where it is proposed in front of the Union is actually moved north of where it currently exists today. Right now, it's kind of almost at the steps area, real close to the intersection itself. But your point of any vehicle or truck going westbound on South University and making that right turn, we are still going to investigate to make sure that the turning movement of those vehicles can make that radius. So that's something that will be further investigated to make sure that they don't track into the southbound lane. So that will also be reviewed as well. But our intention is not to make a conflicting movement like that of a bottleneck or a pinch point or a conflict that might cause a crash.
Matt?
Thank you.
Thanks, everybody. I'm Matt Carpenter. I'm the CEO over at The Ride, and I want to thank the city and the university and Wade Trim for working with my colleagues. We're very excited about this project. You know, it's I think a big step forward for transit priority, and it's amazing that they've managed to sort of shoehorn as many functions in here as they have. So we're excited about some of the continuing work. Some of the things that other commissioners here have raised, I know the ride continues to have an interest in, things like how to keep motorists from intruding into the bus lane. That's going to be a big question. We're all for red paint. We think that that's a great way of saying don't go here. The actual signal, the open eye, closed eye kind of thing is very common in the industry. Maybe not in Michigan. I think there might be an example in Detroit somewhere, but it's very common in the industry and works very well. Our concern, and Luke may have a good idea about vehicle detection or some other method there, is if we end up with multiple buses. So 2 ride buses and 2 U of M buses, you know, on a busy day, it's not impossible to see that all of a sudden stack up there. Can all 4 of them get through before the signal changes over? And then conversely, as we've already discussed, if there are no buses there, can the signal be modified to give more time to pedestrians, motorists, whomever else is there? If the buses aren't there, we don't need it. We like sort of the surgical, tactical nature of this. Northbound is definitely the priority. Those are buses heading to the Blake. They're usually, under pressure to get there in time to make a transfer. Heading south, we'd love to have a bus lane that direction too, but it's a lower priority because those buses are leaving the Blake and they have a long way to go to their destination. They probably have the ability to make up the time as they're going along on the route. And then Pete raised the pedestrian bicyclist conflicts. One thing I'd encourage Wade Trim to look into, we use these style bus stops / bike lanes on William Street now. And possibly north of Huron. So these stops, these style already exist in the city. So you might be able to get a sense of, do bicyclists and pedestrians have conflicts there now with waiting bus passengers, or have they learned to sort of adopt to the new thing? And then
Matt,
the last thing.
Hey, Matt, sorry to interrupt you. You froze, at least on my end. You froze for like 3 seconds. Where was it on William Street?
So I think it's right around the corner. Like if you look at the projected bike lanes on Williams, pretty much everything west of all the way to Main Street, I think there's protected bike lanes the whole way. And I think there's like 2 or 3 bus stops along that route. I think there's one very shortly after the turn. that has a similar style where the bus stop is you have to go through the bike lane to get to the curb to board the bus. So that might be analogous to what you're planning here. So useful to look at in terms of does it work?
Thank you.
And then the last thing, I don't disagree with Pete about the turning radius from South U onto northbound State Street. The orientation of the bus stop and the crosswalk are very important. In the transit industry, we hate putting bus stops on what we call the near side of a crosswalk. We always want to go past the crosswalk before the bus boards and alights people. And this is an important safety reason, because if the bus stops, say right in front, just before the crosswalk, the passenger will exit the bus and immediately go into the crosswalk to cross the street. In which case, now imagine you're a motorist coming up from behind the bus. You decide to overtake that bus. And you're just speeding along next to this bus, and all of a sudden somebody steps out in front of the bus in the crosswalk. So unfortunately, there are fatalities like this every year in the US because of the orientation of the bus being blocking the sight line, people crossing from the motorists coming up from the rear. So when the bus goes to the far side of the crosswalk, then the passenger gets out and walks backwards away from the bus to the crosswalk. They're now fully visible to oncoming traffic heading the same direction of the bus. So the way it's designed in your schematic right now is probably the safest way it could be, because the crosswalk is behind the bus stop and motorists would see the people trying to cross the street. So I don't disagree with Pete about the turning radius, but please keep the orientation of the crosswalks and the bus stops the way they are. Thank you. Otherwise, great design. We're very excited about it.
The bus stops, I assume that they would be shared between IIITA and U of M buses. Is that right?
Just for the northbound, southbound is exclusive to, at this time, AAATA.
Okay. All right. And then a question about the transit queue jump signal. When it does go vertical for buses does that, for the bus driver that sees that, would they see that as just an opportunity to get ahead of the cars and then stop, or go all the way through the intersection? Because that would have an effect on whether multiple buses could even get through.
All the way through.
Okay, all the way through. Yeah.
It's like their green light.
Okay. All right. So that makes sense then, if there's multiple buses, that they could all hopefully get through. Okay.
Yep.
That depends, however, on the duration of the signal. With a queue jumper, the idea is just long enough for the bus to pull ahead of the traffic. Once that 40-foot long bus has started to pull ahead of you, you're not likely to ram into it.
Right.
But if the first bus is gone and the second one hasn't quite caught up to it, someone could sneak in and let all the other traffic go. So I think they're still doing some work on how exactly to make that system effective.
And it's not very far until the next stop at Northview, right? So there could easily be, a backup there too at that light, unless this will be timed in coordination with the Northview light. I don't know.
Yeah, and there's also some routes turn left as well on William.
Yeah, right. Okay. All right, other questions, comments? Pete?
That's a good point about similar bus islands throughout the city. I don't think there's another place nearby. It's certainly not one where we have a bus boarding island like this, though, in Ann Arbor, that has this volume of pedestrian traffic. I mean, this is like State Street during the school day is like off the charts. So I just want to be careful about that comparison.
Yeah, and this one, I pulled up the Williams one and the Division one, and this one is different because we are providing a lot more storage for pedestrians, a place for people to queue and wait for the bus. That's not also shared with the bike facility, bike lane. So it's definitely sized for the volume of pedestrians and users. And I'm sorry we used up so much time, but thank you.
This is fantastic. I was very glad that you guys brought this forward and that we had some opportunity to have input at this time. This is perfect. And I look forward to seeing the North U plan sometime in the future as well. So, all right. Yeah. Thank you. Thanks to your team for coming and presenting this to us. I'm personally very excited about it, and we'll look forward to updates in the future.
Thank you for inviting us.
Thanks.
All right. Great. So let's next move on to the downtown area circulation study. We have the whole team from DDA and other groups here. The city and the Downtown Development Authority are working on the downtown area circulation study to evaluate multimodal user services in downtown and surrounding areas. So this presentation will highlight key project proposals and identify their development stage in either planning or engineering design. So the next public engagement event here is October 23rd. I think that's the one at the library, I'm assuming. I just got an email about that from 11 to 7, so I'll try to make it. I'm not sure if I can, but anyway, take it away.
Thank you. Hello, everyone. I'm Trevor Bryden. I'm a transportation program manager, transportation planner in the transportation team at the City of Ann Arbor. And we've been working with the DDA. My colleague from the DDA, Amber Miller, capital projects manager for the DDA, is here as well. We'll be batting back and forth to give you an update for the presentation. So I believe can I share my screen? I think I can. Let me try it. And here we go. All right. Slideshow is up. If it's coming through. So wanted to, this is the second time we've addressed the Transportation Commission for the study. The first time was last year around this time. Since then, we've had some pretty significant engagement and some refinements on things. And so wanted to come back here ahead of the next engagement to get some of your feedback. Again, this is a planning study and one that's trying to fill in some of our thoughts about the downtown area and how the streets can work in the limited space that's there. This is a parallel plan. Sorry, is this blocking everybody?
Good to me.
No, okay, good. There's a toolbar at the top. Didn't want it to be blocking things. Thank you. Anyway, there are 3 planning efforts that are going on right now. The first is the comprehensive plan or land use plan. The city's land use plan for the entire city is up to determine vision and priorities for the future of the city. And there's quite a bit of changes being proposed for densities and orientation towards transit. There's the downtown area circulation study, which is to identify future capital improvements in the downtown area for streets, as well as make some transportation plan updates to be able to further the vision and goals in the transportation plan. And we're also trying to balance the demands of the limited downtown street area space. And then additionally, the DDA is up for renewal and is forming its program to have 30 years of projects be able to be thought of, to be visualized, and to be developed over the course of a 30-year time frame. So all of these 3 things are kind of working together. The downtown area circulation study itself has 4 different emphasis areas, 4 different areas we're looking at: the bicycle system, to transit enhancements, to the pedestrian environment, as well as to the street network. And all these things have relationship to each other, but are distinct enough to take a look at individually as well. And finally, want to remind people about the values that really overlap this effort, and which we're grounding and trying to further through this planning effort. The DDA values along the bottom match up very well with the values that are expressed in Ann Arbor moving together towards Vision Zero. And we're take some pains to tie those together with some of the recommendations that are coming out of this study. Want to give you just a moment to take a look at the results from our community engagement in March and April. We held 7 events in those months. We had over 380 attendees, received over 800 comments, and had 27 stakeholder small group meetings during that time. Really a robust and diverse set of feedback that we got in a short amount of time, and we were able to sift through it. And well, anyway, also at the time, the amongst those 27 stakeholder meetings and others that we went through, we've been continuing to engage in business area associating meetings with the RIDE and with U of M to learn more about what they envision for transit use in the city. City street design team meetings, which all different departments of the city come together and take a look and share a conversation about how to approach street design and maintenance. 3 DDA board sessions, 2 meetings with the Ann Arbor Public Schools, a meeting with bike enthusiasts at a handlebar happy hour, a bike summit. The Delonis, we had a survey go out to the Delonis Center as well as a Housing Commission survey to further explore how their customers are using transportation, bikes, transit, etc. And at the result of this, when we boil down what we've heard most often about many of these categories, first of all, we heard very strong support for the bike connections that are forming in and around downtown, overall support and enthusiasm for increasing the availability and the extent of the low-stress bike network that is formed in downtown, and a desire for context-sensitive designs. There was also clear support for transit improvements, including better frequency, greater service hours, and geographic reach. The pedestrian environment, we heard a strong vision for a vibrant public realm with beautiful pedestrian streets and amenities that can attract a range of people and families. The street network itself, there was support for restoring the 2-way traffic on 5th and Division, and a desire for calm, safe streets and improved wayfinding and intersections. Downtown's role in the community got quite a few comments about that, especially a desire for more housing options, affordability, and the diverse and increasing diversity of the population, strengthen the quality of place and to gather and improve livability and expanded amenities, public services, and space. And we also heard, due to the comprehensive plan, quite a lot of support for environmental protection and climate action, reduction of car dependency, and renewable energy, were the most cited desires. Now, when we met with stakeholders, there are often times in which the stakeholders themselves had a little bit of a, not contrary, but a different take, a different angle on the feedback we were getting in general. For example, I just want to pull out some of the perspectives from the business districts that in the conversations that took place with them. The business districts had a desire for more attractive and flexible barricades rather than looking like a construction zone. They wanted to make sure that there was known that there was a lack of programming staff to supply the programming that is needed for a more active, vibrant street environment. There's a branding issue that goes about with the street closures that makes it sound like something is being taken away, but rather than things that are being added to the environment and the space. Wanted to leverage event streets and other ways to create flexible space in the streets as a reason to linger downtown. Here's something that's real important: the access to the parking decks and the legibility of getting back and forth to them, the connectivity and the experience with them is very important. The downtown bikeways in their view, have somewhat hindered their businesses, there's worry that the downtown bikeways are discouraging people from arriving via automobile. And there's also mixed support for the city and the DDA's commitment for Vision Zero and carbon neutrality. Before going on to some of the pillars of the bike proposals and transit proposals, etc., I want to invite my colleague Amber Miller to talk about some of the key downtown data findings that we saw. There's some really interesting data, and I want to give her a chance to spend a few minutes going over that. Amber?
Thanks, Trevor. So as Trevor mentioned, we just wanted to give you all, we have a couple slides on data, share some context for how downtown visits have been changing in the last couple of years. So this is a slide that shows some data from a source called Placer. It's essentially anonymized cell phone data that track visit trends. And what you're seeing on your screen are employee visits, resident visits, and visitor visits. So that first chart in the upper left, that is showing how resident visits and employee visits have changed pre-pandemic to post-pandemic. So prior to the pandemic, we had about 1.8 to 2 million resident visits occurring annually downtown, and about 4.7 to 5.1 million employee visits occurring annually. After the pandemic, with the shift and transition to stay at home, we've seen those employee visits drop significantly. We've lost about 1 million employee visits annually. And with the increase in housing downtown, we have seen resident visits increase by almost that same amount. So really, we've seen this shift from employee activation during the daytime to resident activation downtown. The chart below that shows annual just visitor visits, and over time that has been steadily increasing. So overall, the visits to the downtown are above the pre-pandemic level, but we are seeing changes in when people are coming downtown, and the busiest hours downtown are really shifting from that kind of lunchtime crowd to evening and weekend. Trevor, you want to keep advancing? Oh, do you mind going back one? All right, so we are also able to use this data to track how visits change when we make street changes. So what you're seeing here are visit trends from prior to construction and after construction on First and Ashley streets and the bikeway projects. So on First and Ashley, we saw a 20% increase in visits following changes to the street compared to 8% for the Main Street area overall. And on the bikeway corridors, about a 30% increase to visits along the bikeway streets compared to 8% for the district as a whole. So we are seeing more people using these streets, and these changes really are more than just transportation changes. They are economic development and placemaking changes as well. And hopefully you've already heard about this, but we do have bike and pedestrian counters in place downtown, and there is a dashboard available on the DDA's website where you can see how many people are using the bikeways. In the month of June, over 27,000 bicycle trips were counted at 3 locations. Since this time, we've actually added counters on First Street and a couple of other locations downtown. So we now have a pretty nice data set of people walking and biking on these streets. We're also seeing positive safety outcomes as well for the two-way restoration on First and Ashley. The percent of drivers traveling above the speed limit decreased by about 43%. On the new bikeway streets, no serious injuries or fatal crashes have occurred to street users of any mode. And there were serious or fatal crashes prior to these changes. And this is happening even while bicycle traffic has increased significantly. On Fifth Avenue and Detroit Street, before the project construction, we were seeing less than half of drivers stopping for pedestrians trying to cross the street. And in the post-construction study, nearly all drivers stopped for pedestrians. Trevor, do you want to pick it back up?
Yes, thank you. So, and as we're looking through the study and furthering the transportation plan, the Ann Arbor Moving Together Towards Vision Zero transportation plan. We looked at many of the strategies that are expressed in the transportation plan, and along the left side are 6 bullet points that are all strategies that are within the plan, that are stated within the plan, and which this project furthers. However, as we are looking at someplace like the downtown streets, in which have limited space and lots of uses, there will be trade-offs that in which when we try to look at these strategies and try to take a close look about what they're serving and which strategies they're furthering and how they can all work together in a downtown network more than everywhere all at once at the same time. So looking at these, between building out a safe, comfortable network of bike routes, making intersections safer and easier, prioritizing transit reliability and speed, creating shared street spaces, focusing on the areas with the most serious crashes, and addressing dangerous driving behaviors. We need to take a look at things like the potential to remove a signal, but it could impact transit operations. And so when you have transit and changes to the signalization, perhaps we take a second look. When there's separated bike lanes and transit-only lanes, they won't fit easily on either street. When there are curbside bike lanes, where are the curbside bike lanes needed to support business and activity? And also where road diets are good, but what are so when we're looking at reallocating space in the roadway, how do we reserve space for transit as we're doing that? So there are trade-offs inherent in all this, and when we take a look through these recommendations, you'll see how they can kind of play out. So first, starting with the bicycle system, how this connects to the values and why we are embarking or recommending the expansion of the bikeway system. It has so much to do with access, with knowing that 30% of people in any community typically do not have access to a car due to age, ability, other socioeconomic factors. Others choose to walk, bike, or ride the bus for health and environmental reasons. Anyway, all these people, it's a good percentage of our population, need to be able to get safely to where they need to go through in the city. Second reason is to try to promote greater access to bike routes and making it more comfortable to bike in Ann Arbor. And so if you have a conventional bike lane, only a brave few, 15% of the able-bodied riders are typically willing to ride. With separated bike lanes that are calmer and more comfortable, you can get 60% or more of able-bodied bike riders out and willing to ride. Thirdly, by building a connected network, you're able to get more of this connected space and able to reach and access more things out in the community. And so more people biking is an advantage to Ann Arbor because it slows speeds and it improves safety for everyone. It reduces the number of cars on the road, it reduces carbon emissions, and improves access and choices for all. So how does that play out in Ann Arbor? In our transportation plan, the Moving Together transportation plan identified most downtown streets as proposed all ages and abilities. And if you take a look at the right side, it is a screen capture of our transportation plan that shows the ambitions for an all ages and abilities network. The green lines are existing all ages and abilities routes. And then the purple is proposed routes, and you can see almost every street in the downtown area is proposed for an all ages and abilities route. Roadway conditions, such as they are, would require separation of bike lanes for most of the streets. And so when it's taking up space for separated bike lanes on all streets really crowds out the uses of all the other competing interests that really make further our plan towards its goals. So putting the plan into practice, we need to recognize that there are trade-offs to be made and be strategic about what routes are selected for all ages and abilities and balance the coverage and access alongside funding constraints, because each one of these projects needs to seek out its own funding as it goes along. Not every downtown street needs all ages and abilities facility either. That's when we take a look, when we scan around for best practices, our peers and neighbors that are trying these same things, you really just need access to all ages and abilities route, but not need it for each and every street in the area. So the approach, the revised approach that we're proposing in the study, is to provide access to the downtown bikeway loop within 1 to 2 blocks of all downtown locations. Not every street needs to have a all ages and abilities facility. Focus on connections into the downtown and connecting to the adjacent neighborhoods. So if you take a look at the map to the right, in the center is the core of the downtown area, with Huron going through and the bikeway forming a box around the downtown area. So the proposal is to extend these out into the communities to make high comfort, low stress ways to connect in and out of the bike network to the major population and activity centers in and around the downtown area. So building a connected low stress network allows us to balance access and coverage of the low stress network to and through downtown. And it mostly relies on separated bikeways or bike boulevard treatments in the case of West Washington as it's being proposed. Like we said, most of the streets require some form of separation due to the characteristics of the traffic operations in that area. The bicycle boulevard is much more a road that is designed to be comfortable for bicycle through trips, while trying to divert and diminish the amount of through vehicle trips, and so try to keep it local and slow and low volume. The Bikeway project recommendations for this are enumerated here. Including the bike, and I should mention, with Lucas wanting to have special attention paid to which of these projects are in more of a planning phase, and which can really have some larger feedback as far as the direction and the wisdom of proceeding with these recommendations, versus those that are either actively in construction or in design. And so most of these that you'll see are in the planning phase, but you'll see that notation going down the side there. And so you have the Catherine Street Bikeway extension that reaches out towards the medical campus, the Division Street Bikeway extension that picks up the Division Street Bikeway as it heads down the hill towards the Broadway Bridge, and needing a much more safe and secure connection there. And the Broadway Plymouth Side Path extension is to connect to the Broadway Bridge and pull users across to the other side in a comfortable circumstance. There's a recommendation for a 721 Summit connector that goes along the low-lying ground of the area, utilizes some city owned property at 721 North Main, and connects over to Summit and through Wheeler Park to connect to the border-to-border trail, as well as the other bikeway connections. Washington Street Bike Boulevard is proposed for design in 2025 with a 2026 construction, and Miller Bikeway extension is under, we've received bids and are in the process of coming to an agreement with a construction company to construct this in 2025. Just had a presentation on the State Street bike improvements as part of the State and North U Stand project. And our Safe Streets for All grant are considering some separation treatments on the Packard and North Main connection. So really trying to go all the way around the city and make these connections. And these are, of course, all in the effort for trying to reduce vehicle miles traveled, to add an all ages and abilities network, to reduce, to meet our safety goals with Vision Zero, to complete neighborhoods and support a thriving and resilient economy, and continue to increase visitors and bikeway usage numbers, inviting people to the downtown using bikes. In the transit column, transit is important to the study because of the growth in Ann Arbor and the need to be able to pull more people through our roadways and the size that they are. Transit is going to be critical in completing these trips in an efficient way. And bus travel isn't as competitive as driving for more trips when it takes longer to drive. And so we're wanting to increase the quality of the bus travel and the reliability of the bus travel. So, and again, many people don't have access to a car, don't use a car more than one might often think. And so, by adding more people to taking the bus, it increases the amount of service that is out there and provides more access and opportunities, not just for the people taking the bus, but for those that are more dependent upon the bus. And more people taking the bus increases our physical and mental health. It creates investments in the local economy. It reduces carbon emissions and improves access and choices for all. The rides transportation or the rides transit plan is pictured on the right there. It is envisions a transit network of 2045 with a layered approach to transit with bus rapid transit intensities along Washtenaw and Huron and Jackson, as well as a north-south one beginning in Plymouth and ending down in State. Has priority services with very frequent, with high frequencies along these east-west and north-south routes there as well, and then also has more high-frequency service routes going more into the outlying areas. But you can see how much they all tie back into downtown, and the importance of making downtown connections to the bus service is critical to the overall operations to the buses, as well as plans to further increase the quality of service through bus rapid transit. Some of the tools we're looking at to increase bus service in the downtown area are things that were mentioned in the previous conversation: transit signal priority of a variety of uses, but to be able to better, more reliably move the buses through the downtown area. Transit queue jump lanes were discussed previously in the conversation. We've got a good detailed look at that. Transit only lanes. There was a short queue jump lane that's transit only, trying to envision ways to make a full connection of reliable transit between downtown Ann Arbor and downtown Ypsi as the top priority, as well as transit stop enhancements. And this is a picture of Division just north of Huron, and this is probably the best example of that separated bus drop-off space with a landing area and the ability to get across the bikeway to the sidewalk. So as far as transit recommendations, overall, we're trying to reserve street space for key transit corridors that both the RIDE and U of M have identified as being corridors that they are wanting to continue to run and run more intensively over time, as well as short-term operational needs for the bus service. First of all, looking at the projects, there's the Huron Street transit only lanes, trying to look at dedicating space in that downtown area for transit priority moving through the Huron Street corridor. Lots of demand for that space. Much thinking through how transit can be the priority user of that space. The 4th Avenue transit signal priority, getting buses from the downtown Blake Transit Center up to Huron through some transit signal priority, progressing them up to and through Huron. 5th Avenue transit signal priority. This comes into play with potential two-way conversion of 5th and Division, and thinking through how buses get to the Blake Transit Center from the north there using 5th Avenue. The stand project makes its appearance here again at number 4, and the Glenn Fuller queue jumps recommendation, number 5 out there, would be similar in application to the State Street queue jump. U of M's planning a second bus hub in the central campus area in Madison on Madison Street on number 6, and a potential Broadway transit only lane. The second priority for the expanded bus service is the Plymouth corridor, and getting across the Broadway Bridge is one of the largest pinch points in that corridor. And why these are important, of course, trying to achieve Vision Zero, bus riding is much safer than automobile riding, and use the reduction of VMT again, trying to get transit services to provide convenient options for everyone, as well as improved access and wayfinding around the downtown area once you arrive. Looking at the street network, what are the tools we're using here? We're looking at two-way street restorations, similar to First and Ashley, looking at Fifth and Division. These are more high volume streets, but still under wanting to think through what they would look like and what benefits might come with changing them to a two-way operation. All-way stop conversions, we're looking at signal warrant analysis to see which of the traffic signals downtown are worth considering removing to change to all-way stops. Signal enhancements, including countdown pedestrian signals and leading pedestrian intervals, and timing adjustments for safety be alongside of the two-way conversion, as well as intersection improvements to shorten crossing distances and other things where the opportunities present themselves. And here, the street network recommendations that we have are, first of all, the first and second are the Fifth Avenue and Division two-way restoration, which also brings in number 3 Beeks. All 3 of these kind of need to operate together to make this conversion, with a possible two-way connection between but that's less critical to the overall functioning of the two-way conversion. And number 4, the intersection of Beeks, Division, and Broadway together in their current configuration will not work. Doesn't work for the bikeway, doesn't work for the transit-only lanes, and doesn't work for the two-way conversion. So trying to explore options for a signalization of that intersection and better ways for people to walk and bike in that area that feel less free-flowy and more like a freeway interchange. There are 2 intersections we've identified that currently have traffic signals that could be converted to all-way stops. Those are at Liberty and Ashley and Liberty and Thompson. A couple of others met the warrants, but because that they were on the transit signal corridor priority, we are considering that it's more important to have the signalization there with the potential for improving transit operations rather than changing those to all-way stops. Of course, why this is important, we're wanting to improve access to the downtown through wayfinding and navigation tools. We're wanting to support local businesses, achieve our safety goals, achieve our carbon reduction VMT goals, and make transit convenient. And why does that two-way conversion help with some of these with some of these concerns? It reduces the double threat interaction that happens when multiple lanes are heading in the same direction. There's more there will be more vehicle pedestrian conflicts in a two-way system that we've seen on First and Ashley as well. More potential conflicts, but we have not seen an increase in severe injuries or death there either. A reduction of turning movements within the network. You no longer need to go one way a ways and circle back around to find your destination. It should reduce the amount of turning and searching around the downtown area. And our model showed that there will be an overall reduction in speed with this configuration, a 20 to 25% reduction in speed, and a crash reduction factor. If speeds are reduced that much, then we will gain a 15% reduction in mean speed translates into significant crash reduction and safety benefits, including 44% reduction in fatal crashes, 22% reduction in injury crashes, and 15% reduction in property crashes. Pardon me. And we are taking all of these projects and putting them together into a synchro model platform to be able to see how all of these things work in conjunction with each other, mostly to try to increase our understanding of how everything works together. There's a lot of change proposed in this. So can all these things work? Can all vehicles that want to enter the street network enter the street network? Is there queuing into adjacent intersections that is caused by these configurations? Are there speed and crash reductions anticipated? We also want to know the type of benefits that we'd be seeing out of this reconfiguration. And we also want to understand that increases in travel times along these corridors will mostly relate to benefits and reductions of speeds and the comfort of the space because of the reductions in speeds, and also the increased safety that comes with reductions in speeds. I'm going to turn it over again to Amber to talk about the pedestrian environment, and then we'll have just a couple of next steps.
Thanks, Trevor. So this element of the planning effort has changed a little bit since you all last saw it. If you remember, this started out as a focus on event streets. And when we went and talked with the community in March, they provided significant feedback that we really needed to be thinking beyond event streets and just kind of broaden it to the full pedestrian realm. And the strong pedestrian realm, we know, supports social connections and economic strength. We saw that in some of the data that I shared early on, supports safety and accessibility, and provides opportunity for resilience infrastructure as well. And there are a couple of improvement types we are looking at in this category. 3 of them, the DDA can take the lead on in terms of infrastructure investments. So things like flexible streets, enhanced public spaces, and placemaking and wayfinding. And then there's another important element here, which is seasonal streets and activation. And Trevor mentioned the downtown area associations. We have 4 downtown area associations in our downtown, and they are the ones that lead and program events and seasonal street closures. So just to share with you some examples of flexible streets, the local example that we have is the curbless street on State Street. So in addition to creating flexible spaces, it also helps to calm traffic and create a nice pedestrian environment. I think the kind of key opportunity we see for a flexible street, another flexible street in downtown, is Liberty Street, connecting Main Street and State Street, east to west, but also opportunity on streets like Washington and Maynard as well. And public plaza enhancement. So this one's stretching a bit beyond the transportation network, but we heard this was really important in an area to be strengthened downtown. So this is really more of a partnership with the Parks Department and will be included in our development plan. But it is an important part of the public realm experience in downtown. So we'll be focusing on that as well. And then something we heard quite a bit about was the need for improved placemaking and wayfinding on side streets and the streets that lead from parking structures. So making parking structures themselves look nicer. And then also having more of an engaging sidewalk experience, connecting parking structures to some of our destination streets in downtown. So you can see some examples there. And then lastly, seasonal streets and activation. So we recognize that with seasonal street closures versus like a 3-day-a-week closure, there is an opportunity for some of these more like semi-permanent programming elements that can be really engaging for the full community. And we are talking to the Main Street District about this, about how they might be interested in kind of iterating the seasonal closures that they've been hosting. They are serving their members to try to understand that more, and then we can build infrastructure to help support that activation. There's also interest in this on Washington Street, and as I mentioned, Liberty Street we see as kind of a critical opportunity for this based on the existing activity on that street. And outside of the Main Street area, some of the other neighborhoods downtown are starting to express interest in exploring this as well. So the State Street District and South University neighborhood in particular. And here are the recommendations in map view. And essentially, we are recommending touching almost every street in the downtown and enhancing the pedestrian environment. So you see the flexible street improvements there highlighted on Main Street, Liberty, and a couple of others. And then we have the placemaking and wayfinding streets identified, the public space enhancements at places like the Farmers Market and Liberty Plaza, and then seasonal street areas for consideration as well. And this just relates back to those values that I shared at the beginning of this section, just the importance of creating a downtown that is welcoming to a diverse community and a downtown that's engaging and interesting for all people.
looking at real quick at next steps. We're sharing the study recommendations with the broader public at the open house on November 23rd at the downtown library. We're also going to recommend adoption of as part of the DDA's 30-year development plan, as well as updates to the Moving Together Towards Vision Zero plan. We're still talking through what form those updates would be and in what way the recommendations will be put forward. But there's the intention is to update the thinking in our plan so that the recommendations that are thought through here have solid grounding to move forward and pursue implementation. We're also wanting to go ahead.
Oh, sorry, Trevor, I was just realizing we didn't include, I know we wanted to circle back to the Transportation Commission after the October engagement. That's not shown on this slide here, but that is our plan as well.
Indeed, we'll be back after we hear from everyone again and incorporate that information into the recommendations and the plan. And so this will be you will have another opportunity to take a look at this before it advances. Yeah, and we're also looking for opportunities to advance these projects where possible through the capital improvement plan process at the city. And please consider showing up and coming out to the October 3rd planning open house. It includes both the downtown area circulation study and the land use comprehensive plan. And so please come out and talk to others that are showing up to get a sense of what they think about it and increase your own familiarity, give us your own feedback and perspective. The more we hear, the more we can build in, the better we can hone our plans for developing Ann Arbor in the future.
And the email said there will be pizza there.
And there will be pizza there. We'll curb your hunger, and we'll have a good time. And so, yeah, that's our show from here. Luke, I'm not sure what time we have for questions, but we'd be happy to entertain and further this conversation.
Yeah, we definitely have time for questions.
Oh, sorry, Brett. I should have been addressing you. My apologies.
No, Luke. Whatever. Yeah, let's raise your hand or speak up. What kind of questions or comments do people have? Maybe while people are thinking, just on your previous slide, there's going to be a proposal you said to updates to our comprehensive transportation plan.
Mm-hmm.
What form do you see that coming in? Like recommended updates? That's a plan that was approved by us and then adopted by City Council. So I'm just curious what you're thinking there.
We're still playing around with some of the things that seem pertinent to it. Would be articulating that we're aiming for an all ages and abilities network in the downtown area that puts people within a block or two of a low comfort facility rather than every block. Because quite literally our plan has us advancing bike facilities at every block. A support for advancing transit priority improvements in the areas that we're looking to advance that will aid us in advancing those, and including discussions with MDOT as MDOT is considering what to do with Washtenaw, and we're also having conversations with MDOT about potentially taking over jurisdiction over the state roadways as well. And so trying to get some policy level changes in, as well as I'm not sure how much we would or in what form we would advance the project level into the plan, but probably try to keep it at the level that the plan currently is, which is more of a here are principles and concepts, and then a separate idea about how they are applied and developed outside of it, but not try to be too prescriptive of the 1, 2, 3, 4 as far as projects go in the plan update. Anyway, I hope I'm not talking out of turn about that. The transportation team is in discussions about this and about how to move this forward in a way that is most congruent with the plan.
All right, thank you, Peter.
So thanks for that great update. There was so much excellent information in there that was really, really good. but there's two things I want to comment on, and one of them is you just mentioned about taking control of the trunk lines back from MDOT. I just want to reiterate support for that so that we can realize all of these great plans. To me, that seems like an important enabler so that we can own our own destiny for the changes we want to see in downtown and other places throughout the city. The other idea that I liked so much and want to comment on was the seasonal street closures. I guess we shouldn't call them street closures, but the seasonal event streets. I think that's a great idea. I would like to see them open for events and pedestrians for longer stretches at a time, because I prefer having them that way, first of all, but I also prefer the consistency. I don't like it changing back and forth. So I'd like to see it be consistently open for those events and pedestrians for like the summer months or the warm months or something like that, instead of on again, off again. But anyways, thanks again, and thanks for all these the great updates in here.
Thank you for those comments.
Megan?
Yeah, thanks. This was great. Two like really forward-looking presentations tonight, which was awesome. I was just going to point out that I really liked your framing around like choice of transit mode. I think this is like how I've tried to talk through it with skeptics before. And I guess I don't know if you have an answer to this yet, but I'm curious to hear if you feel like that resonates with like, the everyday person, because it definitely resonated with me when I started getting into biking. But yeah, I really love that framing, and I think that's similar to what Peter said about framing it as like event streets, and what Amber was saying. Framing these like in a positive way, I think is really important. So thank you for the presentation. The data especially was really exciting. So this is great.
Excellent. Thank you.
Yeah, those first few slides, like around slide 10, 12 or something, showing the data of now that these things, we've been doing a lot of these things for years now, and we've had the two-way implementation on First Nationally for a few years now. Like it's so valuable to be able to determine where we go in the future, and just in conversations. I mean, as people know that I'm on the Transportation Commission, they come up and have an anecdote or two, which is counts for something, but it's much more important to have data like this. I really value that. I also want to say I'm excited to see that you guys are looking at changing some signalized intersections to four-way stops. I think that could really be useful for calming streets. There just seems to be such an epidemic of drivers anticipate a red light, or thinking a red light's, seeing a yellow and just boom, put to the floor. They're just so terrified of having to wait at a red light. They just blow through them and speed up, and just all kinds of crazy behavior around lights. And I think, four-way stops are maybe more likely to be successful in certain situations that, you guys, I know you're working on identifying. So I really value that effort that you're doing there, and hope that there's more than just two that could be considered candidates for that. Like I'm thinking on, right in front of the Michigan Theater, that three-way stop. I feel like much more comfortable crossing there than the signalized stops that are kind of around that, like at Thompson or State Street and stuff. So that's just one example. Other questions or comments? Well, again, I'll join you in giving a plug for next next Thursday evening or
Next
afternoon?
Wednesday, I think, isn't it Wednesday? Pretty sure it's
23rd.
Wednesday.
Oh yeah,
Anybody's showing up the wrong day.
week from today. Like I said, I know one of our kids has a parent-teacher conference, lessons, but we're going to try to make it there at some point. But I know you'll be coming back to the commission after that at some point too, to share those findings. So
Indeed. Well, we'll be there all day. Please come out when it's convenient for you, if you can, if you have the interest. And we're looking forward to presenting this out to the public and getting another round of feedback. the last time through really put some wind behind some of these proposals, and so hoping that we get a similar level of inspection and thoughtfulness at this one.
Thank you. All right, moving
Thank you.
on. Ready to move on? Yep. Okay. Staff report and updates. So Luke, we received a staff report providing project updates with our agenda materials. So Luke, if you wouldn't mind reviewing that.
All right, thank you. As we're wrapping up the construction season, we do not really have an update on the current construction projects. Moving on to other projects currently in the design and planning stage for sidewalk gap projects, Independence. There is staff is preparing for public engagement in November of this year. Barton Drive, sidewalk gap. There was a public meeting to introduce the project to residents, and there was Q&A document. It will be posted on the city webpage when it's available. Construction currently scheduled for 2026. Brockman Crestland public meeting and walkthrough was held earlier in October, and a Q&A document is similar status as Barton Drive. Dexter Ave, for this one, sidewalk will be installed on one side or the other throughout this project area. A public meeting and walkthrough was held also earlier in October, and a Q&A document will be prepared and posted on the webpage. Construction is also scheduled for 2026. We had the discussion or presentation today for State Street. There's no update to the Nixon Road roundabout construction. But there was some email correspondence regarding Logan, Clegg, and the street design on Nixon. There's no update to Pauline water main and resurfacing. Fifth Avenue resurfacing, there's no update for this month, and then we will bring that project to the commission to introduce the alternative lane use on Fifth Ave. And then we just talked about downtown area circulation study. And the next one, going into a little bit of detail, is the 2025 miscellaneous utilities project. This one is scattered through two or three spots. The first one is in the Dickon neighborhood. There are two streets involved, Glastonbury and Weldon. And the second location is Harding and Wallingford. And the third location is on Fifth Avenue. So right now, there's no staff have an extensive review as to all these locations, as to integrating traffic calming measures into the capital project design. So far, there's no proposed change to Glastonbury or Walden. For Harding and Wallingford, staff received feedback regarding alternative intersection design at that intersection, and staff is currently still working on the final design and will engage public and residents. On Fifth Avenue, right now staff is looking at adding bicycle facilities as part of the Fifth Avenue resurfacing project. In the other updates and information group for micro mobility, Spin's right-of-way use contract, it was renewed by City Council for 3 months in June of this year. And by administration action, it was extended for another 3 months in early September of this year to give additional time for council to discuss additional safety expectations and what to include in a longer agreement. On the MDOT coordination front, there are some actions about US 23 improvement project. For this one, there are alternatives for the US 23 and the Washington Avenue interchange that are under consideration. And that will hold an open house, and there's a slight update after this memo was prepared. The open house is now scheduled to be October 21st at Washington Community College. At the same time, MDOT University Region Office has started an active transportation plan update. So they have an engagement page and survey available at this link. Public survey is available on the project website, and it's going to close by the end of this month. We do not have an update to report about U of M Smart Intersection project. In the background, though, the hardware installation continues in that project. There is no update from the Office of Sustainability and Innovation this month. And for streetlight implementation, DTE has reported fixing a total of 899 streetlights so far in this calendar year. There was a request to provide a status update to the multi-lane city street road eye evaluation. So that one, there is funding available for the current fiscal year to conduct the evaluation. Based on previous discussion and scope, the current level of funding would not cover all the corridors included. So staff is working on a revised proposal, trying to balance what we can include in this request for proposal. We're also adding back into this update the status about neighborhood traffic calming. This section does have a lot of highlighters. So the first group is the first bunch is traffic calming projects that have been approved by City Council. So these ones are lined up for construction. The first four colored in light yellow, those Manchester, Bird, Henry, and Arella. The construction is expected either for the remainder of this year or after we cross into the new year in 2025. Then there are two projects slated for construction in 2026. Those are Mershon and Warden. There's this project on Traver. It has been approved by City Council, but right now the construction is on hold. And the reason is to schedule this construction to be simultaneous with several other utilities project on Traver for water main and resurfacing. Then we are having a fairly long list of petitions that need to be reviewed, and working off this year's budget available to have a balance of taking care of construction and also process the petitions. We have room to process three petitions. Those are Carmel Street, Brandywine, and Dottie Avenue. Evaluation for these three petitions are expected to start in this year. For bike corral pilot program, a total 4 bike parking pilots were installed outside of the DDA boundary. Inside the DDA boundary, there were already 3 locations installed. And moving on to Safe Street for All grant, staff continue to work on both the near miss analytics task and quick build and speed management task. Staff had another discussion with Federal Highway earlier this month to discuss about the requirement for NEPA environmental clearance and for the process of releasing fund for construction. So Staff is still working with Federal Highway on that, and we'll have more detail to report. We do not have any update in these other categories for bike parking, carbon reduction program, or encouragement and education. Then we come to the section where we report the flashing yellow arrow operations and how and having the feature turned on to have pedestrian actuation to cancel flashing yellow arrow. So in this month, staff continue to work on Ellsworth, and staff is glad to report that our signals on Ellsworth are now converted over so that pedestrian actuation will cancel the flashing yellow signal indication. There are some details, and staff is gaining a lot of knowledge along the way, working those details out, and we'll continue to address the remaining items on the next group. For this month, the report for reported crashes involving bicyclists and pedestrians, that report is not available, so we'll present together in next month meeting. We do have one follow-up for Packard and Hill. There was a serious injury crash report at that location, and we received a request to make improvement to address the skewness of the intersection, or I should say the side effect of road users being able to see signal indications on the crossing street because of the skewness. So staff procured the louvers on the pedestrian signals, and all 8 pedestrian signal heads are now equipped with louvers there. And that wraps up the project update. Back to you, Chair.
Thank you. Peter.
Thanks, Luke. That's a great update. Thanks for the information on Packard and Hill too. I'm glad that got taken care of so quickly. Can we add the Jackson Road crosswalks to that? I thought that we'd recently sort of broken a log jam with MDOT on that, and thought that was moving along. At what point would we see it on this document?
This document, if there is no update, sometimes it's just taken off for that month, and as soon as we have an update, it's gonna come back. So for that one, we're still working with Michigan DOT to work toward receiving their approval on the construction permit. So,
okay.
Yeah.
Thank you.
All right. Let's move on then to liaison reports. Any commissioners who specifically serve as a liaison to another body or organization are invited to provide reports and updates. So Larry's back on the attendees list. I'm not sure if he needs to be brought in as a panelist or if he had anything to say here, but just want to make sure.
Hello.
Yep.
Yeah, I actually hit the button on my headphones and away I went, so I had to call back. But I have no updates currently. I did have a question, but I think it's too late, so I'll probably ask it on the 23rd.
Never too late. What's your question?
Well, I was just my concern with the downtown. What I wanted them to keep into consideration for the downtown plan was sidewalks, pedestrian safety on sidewalks, and in particular, it was for bike users who decide that they want to use the sidewalks instead of the bike lane. I've had many a run-ins with bikes coming up on me, sneaking up on me, some that don't say anything, and it just, that is a bit of a problem, and I've seen it downtown a lot.
Thanks, Larry. Trevor is still on, so I see him writing that down right now. So thank you very much.
So noted. Thank you.
Well, thank you.
All right, moving on then to commission member communications. Any commissioners invited to provide reports and updates on anything? Peter?
Hi. Let me see, I got some notes here. So recently we've been exposed to some design proposals for AAPS's new school buildings. And I guess I'm not satisfied with their transportation choices that they're making for these new buildings. Lawton, which is in my neighborhood, is a good example. The plans that we saw published in M Live show that all of the existing Lawton AAPS parcel that isn't occupied by the new school building ends up being devoted to drive lanes and parking lots. In this new proposed layout, the play area for the kids would have to be on the adjacent park because all the rest of the space is taken up with car infrastructure. So as it relates to this group, I mean, I understand that the city doesn't have any direct authority over AAPS, but we should have a partnership type relationship between these two entities in our community. And one of the ways that the city needs to support AAPS is by collaborating on these proposals, especially as it relates to transportation and getting people to school. So we especially need to make sure that AAPS is pursuing plans that are aligned with our community's goals, like Vision Zero and carbon neutrality. And unfortunately, what I've seen so far, the new building proposals just are not aligned with those ideals. So what I have seen is that they're prioritizing car travel. The design of the grounds and the structures make it obvious that the way people are expected to arrive at school is by car, not by foot or by bike. So AAPS, I think, is attempting to fix traffic congestion and these overused pickup and drop off lanes by doubling down and adding more of them. This strategy is going to induce demand and increase congestion by encouraging people to drive and discouraging people from walking and riding bikes amongst all this new car traffic. So I guess my thought on this is that the city should not be enabling the school district to, we shouldn't be enabling these bad decisions by giving over parkland at Lawton or anywhere else so that AAPS can supersize their drive lanes. And before our November meeting, I guess I'm planning on working with Erica and other people in the community to find the right way to share that message with AAPS and with the community so that we can partner with them in a way that makes transportation to school safe and aligned with our community values. So I'd like to bring something back for this body to evaluate and hopefully to approve in November, and we can talk more about that in between now and then, Brett. So
great, yeah, thanks. I appreciate that. We'll, we have our agenda setting meeting coming up here in a couple weeks, and yeah, it's been a long-standing desire of this commission to have a special school-oriented meeting. I think what you're talking about here just ratchets that desire up even more. So
thank you, Brett.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to seeing what you and Erica and the community at large put together, and yeah, let's see where that goes. Looking forward to that. Anyone else? All right. Call for agenda items. Luke, did you want to talk about what's coming up in the near future?
Yes. So yeah, where I'm jotting down some notes as to I guess things we already planned on. We want to bring more things back from the existing comprehensive transportation plan as to how things are being deployed. And in particular, there's one additional topic that's in the Eisenhower and State area. So there's currently a sizable proposal of a development project that's called Arbor South. And there will be expecting similar proposals in the TC1 transit-oriented zone. So city is taking an high-level look at the area, and Trevor is coordinating with our consultant to look at an area plan, which is going to overarchingly tie together individual parcels and plan for transportation needs in that area. So we might be able to bring some update in that effort, and circle back on the downtown area circulation engagement. So that's all I have to say at this moment. Thank you.
All right. And as always, please email or somehow contact us if you have other ideas for agenda topics. All right. The next meeting will be held on Wednesday, November 20th, 2024 at 7 p.m. It will also be a virtual meeting like this. And if there are no objections, we'll adjourn our October 16th, 2024 meeting. Are there any objections? Seeing none, this meeting is adjourned. Thank you. Have a good night.
Bye. Thank you.
Thank you. Good night.
Recording stopped.